Okay, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Welcome back to Red Hot Talk once again, and we are having something different. Well, we're doing something different this week. We have a guest. We have started our interview series. We're gonna, I think from this week, we're gonna try to find some time or find someone who can talk to us so about their photography life and what they are, who they are, what sort of photography they do, and hopefully we'll give you all something to think about if you want to get into photography. So hopefully one of these genres would suit your particular needs, and hopefully you learn something from industry professional like someone we are talking about today, Nat Tan, who's a portrait photographer. Why I'm doing this, I'm going to let Nat talk about himself. Do the introduction, but yeah, welcome back. And so please do, Nat, so tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are, where you're from, and what sort of photography you do.
I'm Nat or Nathaniel from Western Australia, Perth, and I'm a portrait photographer. So portrait photography, anything from the one might say boring hit shots or branding shots in the studio, all the way out to outdoors, families, and events. I think some of my favorite things as well would be boudoir, and yeah, I think that's pretty much the gamut, right? And then you got
Yep.
the you've got the product shots, which if you don't like to talk to people, you can talk to things.
That Ross suddenly gave it a nod there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
they don't answer back.
no, and you can boss them around, right? Move
Yeah,
them
they don't
around.
answer back, and they don't complain. They don't complain about looking or feeling fat on the day or bad hair day. No.
Well, we're definitely going to have a nice conversation today because obviously, I photograph people as well. So we do have a lot of things in common. And I'm going to pick your brain a little bit about how you deal with certain situations, not only technically in photography, but also dealing with clients. So hopefully some of you listening right now would be benefited from what we're talking about, because just in case you guys want to get into the same type of photography that we are doing, and you learn a thing or two as well. So you get a little bit of a head start from people that you may encounter in the future. I mean, they're good, but there are also some bad. So you got to be prepared for everything. So, Rod, just go back to you first. And obviously, this is your first time meeting Nat. And do you have anything that because he's a portrait guy. So is there anything specific
Yeah.
that you may want to ask Nat about?
Well, I'll probably jump in now and again to what's called the nerdy techie questions.
Okay,
Um,
right.
All right.
so I'll probably ask a few questions about gear and about editing and
Yep.
stuff like that. So
Okay.
I don't know. Do you not want to talk about portrait photography first? Do you want me to
Yeah.
kind of ask something, or I'll see what you guys say.
Yeah, so I'm going to
Go
structure today's
anywhere.
talk. I'm going to structure today's talk probably start up with the photography side. So like we'll talk a little bit about the genre of photography that Nat does, which is portrait and people, and we're going to move on to a little bit of a technical stuff. And of course, I know you guys like to hear about gear stuff, so we're going to ask Nat about what sort of camera lenses that he chooses, what sort of focal length that he prefers, these sort of things that you guys might be quite keen to learn about as well. So let's start up with photography. Portrait, right? So Nat, out of all the different genre of photography, why do you choose portrait?
Well, okay. I think portraits portraits are unique in the sense that it is a blend of both natural, spontaneous kind of shooting, but together with a lot of artistic flair. You got to know how to style your client. You got to know your client's best sides. It is as spontaneous as it is planned, put it that way.
Right.
And I
Yes.
think because of that blend, I find it really exciting, really challenging, and also really fulfilling because you're not just relying on your subject being good looking or all prepared. It also comes down to you preparing your subject and capturing the right angles, the right expressions at the right time, rather than for example, if you're doing product photography, all you're doing is you're styling creative. If you're doing
Yep.
food photography, so you're styling creative lighting. If it is an event, it's all spontaneous stuff. You just fire off like multiple shots at one time, whether it's low or high. You're shooting multiple frames and hoping that, as you click the shutter, you capture something that's kind of cool. And so I think that's what really draws me into portraiture. It's a blend of art with a bit of wonder.
Oh, that's a good word there. I picked up one word that you mentioned, which is quite fascinating. You said you prepare your client, right? It's not. And so, what type of preparations are you talking about when it comes? Obviously, they come in all clothes, in whatever, whether they're gonna have costume or something that they would like to wear on the day for the shoot. But obviously, I think your preparation is slightly different to what they're wearing, but it's something else as well, right?
Yeah. So for me and my clients, we have a preparation call, or they come into the studio and we sit down, we do a full plan. So from things as basic as I'm gonna if I go off tangent, just pull me back in, okay?
Yep.
So for some clients, when I first meet up with them, I'll ask the question, so what do you want to achieve? And some might say, oh, I want some artwork on the wall. And what kind of artwork? And we start talking about artwork. And from artwork, it is actually it actually has to do a lot with their own home. So I will start like, all right, have you actually had a look at your wall? What room is it in, and what kind of lighting, what furniture? Is it a very light, airy setting? Is it heavy? Do you have wood? Do you have metal? What is in the room? Send me a photo. And when I look at it, I'll say, okay, so based on this, what do you think is going to look good on the wall? Something that's more formal, something that's more casual, something that's fun, outdoorsy, and then we go from there. That begins that gets the ball rolling in terms of what to wear, because anything formal will go
Yeah.
with a very heavily set room with like dark. If it's lots of wood and stuff like that, then you can go either outdoorsy or you can go really formal. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
really depends. And
That.
so
Yep.
the whole planning begins with that, and also from there we choose the outfits. So when they arrive for the shoot, whether it's outdoors or in the studio, they know exactly what to bring because they know what they want to put on the wall. And then, so that's the first bit of planning. The second part actually comes once they arrive at the studio. So a little bit of coaching before the shoot itself.
Yep.
And the coaching basically for the ladies, I like to keep it light and easy and just say, ladies, it's B&B today. So B&B. It's not bed and breakfast, it's boobs and bums. So boobs out, bums out, good posture basically. B&B. And
Yeah,
it, it
that's what I
always
do.
it's always it always creates a laugh, people usually laugh about that. And it makes the whole mood light and
Yes.
easy. It makes
Yeah.
the shoot a lot better. Um, Basically just reminding them shoulders, pelvis back a little bit, good posture. Um, and also everyone hates the double chin, everyone,
Yeah.
including me. And so I always tell them, well, it's easy. None of that tongue on top of your palate shit. No, none of that stuff. Just stick your neck out a little bit, and the light that's coming down 45 degrees from where your left way for right will do some magic, and suddenly you get a very nice, beautiful jawline. So
Right. Interesting. We're
yeah,
gonna come back
and
to
that
that because
usually solves the
that's
problem.
quite technical there, and I think some of you portrait photographer wannabe or to be is going to be find it quite fascinating to hear about Nat, from Nat. It's certainly very good to hear the amount of work you had to go through before you even click the first photograph, and that's important for anyone to understand what commercial photography really is, and because we for professionals, before we do anything, we do spend a lot of time. So a lot of the let's talk a little bit business. I know sidetrack a little bit because I think people need to understand that the amount of time and effort you put into before the shoot and after the shoot is significant. It's not just about a half an hour, 1 hour that you actually facing the client and taking photograph of them. It's all the other stuff that people don't see, right? And that's why for people who want to start photography business, when you do your pricing shouldn't be just purely relying on the time that you spend with your client. It's actually the stuff that you do, just what Nat just did, the consultation time, and then obviously all the technical stuff afterward, the editing, the final delivery, and all these take time. And these times are also our production time, which means money. So all of these need to be added into the calculation. That will be your final pricing. So you need to make sure that all of that is included, not just about that 1 hour, half an hour, 2 hours that you're going to spend with your client, because that is totally, I wouldn't say unreasonable, but I'm just saying that sometimes people may have missed that. So a lot of things that for those who really want to start a photography business, you do need to appreciate that and also understand all of these little things that whether it's going to make or break your business.
Absolutely, 100%.
Could I ask you a couple of questions, Nat? So your work, is it principally taking photographs of people for themselves? So they're the client. And do you sometimes take photographs of models or people for like commercial work, or are you mainly kind of individual portraits? Both, right? Because
I do both. With the majority of my clients being personal clients, and so it's about 60-40. 40% of my work is commercial, and 60% is private clients.
So when it comes to directing private clients, they won't have any experience of being models. Do they ever arrive with a wrong sort of makeup or too much makeup? And do you direct their expressions quite closely, or do you try and keep it all natural and try and choose your moment when they look the best?
Okay, a couple of questions here. The first one,
sorry.
In terms of
makeup.
Yes. So makeup. When I first have the first consultation with them, these are for private clients. I always tell them to come in with regular makeup, and based off how they make up their face, I can advise them accordingly to come in.
Right.
If I find that their makeup skills are absolutely shocking, I would basically tell them, yep, my stylist, my makeup artist will be here on hand to actually do it, and this is the price, and I'll tag it on as a additional fee. That's correct.
So you employ a makeup artist for some of your work?
Absolutely, 100%.
Ah, interesting. Okay. And I guess my other question is, if you're photographing clients who aren't used to posing, do you sometimes get the thing where a female client will do what I call the Facebook pout? So it's like that. And you have to try and talk them out of this kind of pose and try and get them to be more kind of normal. You know what I mean, don't you? The pout. Yes, I do.
And the pout comes as a result of how one holds the phone.
Yes.
The angle.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to posing and stuff like that, I always spend the first 5 to 10 minutes coaching them through basic posing techniques.
Right.
And so once we go through all of that, and the easiest way for those of you who want to take photos of people and be using a single light source, whether it's natural light or whether it is studio lighting, the simplest thing you can do is just ask your subject to point their nose at the light source.
Okay.
And that's easy. So once you point the nose at the light source, it lifts up the chin, points them towards the light. You get catch lights in your eyes straight away, which makes your photo very, very beautiful already.
That's cool.
Yeah, we're gonna show some pictures from Nat in just a moment, so you can see all his work. But that's a very good tips there. But this I think the technique that you mentioned is very easy to achieve in a studio. But what if you shoot outdoor? And outdoor, obviously, lighting angle can be more challenging than indoor and can change every second. So how do you combat how do you combat outdoor shooting in that case?
Outdoor shooting, man, that's a tough one. You've actually put me on the spot, because for me it's quite natural. Like I think it would be for you as well. But come to think of it, let's say it's an outdoor and there's a lot of foliage, so a lot of shadow. I would put my subject in the shade, not
Yeah.
in direct sunlight, and then expose for the shade. And for my style of photography, I like to have a strong backlight when it's outdoors, because somehow when you angle the lens in certain angles, you get a really nice light.
Yeah.
When you got light coming from behind you straight onto your subject, that's the worst because you get bad shadows that you do not want, or you get very flat photos, which you do not want as well. And photos are only made out of two things, light and shadow. And so you got to be able to know how much shadows you want versus how much light and balance it out so you get a very nice 3D effect, good depth to the photo. Because a photo that has too much shadows looks horrible. You can't see a thing. A
Yeah.
photo with too much light is too flat, and flat's really bad.
So you just have to find a good balance and to well, in a way, I think we talked about it, Rod, right? And about photography is light and shadow, like you said, Nat, and also is how you utilize the light and shadow to shape your subject to make them look good. You know, it's not just for people, but it can be buildings, it could be like landscapes. You know, you need
Yes.
the light and shadow, a combination of that to create the texture, the mood, and everything. So I think outdoor is definitely more challenging, but this is also a testament to the great outdoor portrait photographer or anyone who shoot outdoor, how they can read the light and utilize the light to their
Yeah.
advantage.
I learned early on from one of my friends. Um, Basically said, Nat, when you go out and shoot, use your hand. Like put your hand up in front of your face and
Oh,
look
I
at
do
it
that. I
like
do
that,
that.
and then just sort of rotate your hand and see what kind of light and shadows you get. So
Yeah,
that's kind of
yeah,
cool. And so I
yeah.
would I would go out and look. Oh yeah, my hand looks really pretty at this angle. Okay, let's put the subject over there.
It's
And
funny. I got a few clients actually ask me that. What are you doing? Is it like I'm checking the light?
No,
I've
computer say.
I haven't got you two guys your experience of portrait photography. I've done a limited amount, but one thing that struck me, and I don't know whether you agree, is when you meet somebody,
Yeah,
the face when you see them talking to you in its animated form, is different to the one you photograph because the face you photograph can look completely different. And also, you can have the same person. You stand there, and it doesn't do them any favors. You stand there, and suddenly the picture's fantastic. Their faces do have they do have good angles, don't they? When they
yeah.
suddenly come to life,
Yes,
and that's a skill. That's quite hard. That's quite hard to learn, and it's I find it quite
you
difficult to
just
tell people don't turn this way because you're not looking. What am I not looking? Nothing, nothing. You have to have the right kind of diplomacy, don't you?
actually, Rod, to talk about that, that's rather interesting because early on, I realized that people do have a preference for their left or right,
Yeah.
and it's quite
Right.
easy to tell. You can sort of guess. There's a high chance of knowing which side they like based on how they've parted their hair.
Ah,
People who part their hair right down the middle
yeah.
or have no real parting at all don't usually have a preference. People who
Okay.
part their hair on the left, moving over to combing a comb over to the right, usually prefer the side where it's combed from.
Okay.
Because they
You
want
can
to show
actually,
Okay.
more. Yeah.
yes, you can actually, and I found this to be 90% accurate. And so my clients will come in, I'll have a chat, I'll ask, do you have a preference left or
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because I'd like to know based on where you're gonna stand, and then they go like, and I would just butt in. I was like, I think you're a person who likes your right side. Am I right or not? Then they go like, right side, which is my right side? This side. Yeah, yeah, I like that a lot. How do you know? And I was like, well, I know you well enough. And then they just go,
So So, do you ever get a situation where a client says, "Oh, that's a good one of me," and you're thinking, "No," or do you just let the client decide all the time?
I I usually let the client decide because
Yeah,
at the end
yeah,
of the day, they are
yeah,
going to
yeah,
choose the photos.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
They are
yeah,
going to buy the images, and
yeah,
it's not about how much I like it unless I'm
yeah,
the creative director.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Got it.
But
Makes sense.
but to answer your question, truthfully speaking, there have been times where I look at a photo that a client says that is my absolute favorite. I go like, mate, that is shocking.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
So
I experienced a few.
so so it's quite difficult for both of you then, because might be times when your client likes a shot and you think that doesn't show them in the best light. That's not flattering. But you have to
Correct.
find a way. You either let them choose the one they want, or you try and guide them, I guess. So there's a lot of personal skill and diplomacy in this whole
Yeah.
thing. You have to
Yeah.
be good with people and reading people.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yes.
I think that is one thing that what sets portrait photographer from other genre of photography, because we are dealing with people. Yes, we are photographing them, but we're also dealing with them, on a daily basis, and we see people from all sorts of ethnicity, all sorts of personalities, and all sorts of characters, and to be honest, like if you have like 3 or 4 clients a day, and you have to suddenly switch your mind to adapt to that sort of personality and work with
Yeah,
them. So it is a very challenging and mentally quite tiring job, on its own. So if you have a lot of clients in a day, all different clients in a day, it's going to be quite challenging.
yeah.
Right.
That's
So
right.
now,
That's
now
right.
back to a little bit about photography, and so portrait the things that you do. So I suppose that you mentioned a little bit about weddings. So you also do some wedding as well, right?
Yes. Um, I shifted into starting to do some weddings, and whew, it's been an interesting experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So in terms of photographing people, I can kind of guess the answers now. So when you say interesting experience, and do you prefer like a just general portrait, or wedding, or a bit of mix, or you think that okay, now I try wedding is not really my cup of tea now. I really want to move into a little bit more full blown into portraiture.
I think being a wedding photographer is part business and part calling. Um, Let me explain why. So I got into I got into the wedding scene right after COVID.
Right.
So what for those of you listening who are photographers, you would understand that there was during COVID times, people couldn't get married. In fact, weddings were being cancelled. Everything
Yep.
was pretty much everything was cancelled. Wedding vendors, they were falling out of the sky, left, right, center. And so we had a lot of people wanting to get married, finally going, hell yeah, let's get married because COVID's over and everything's open, and let's go for it. And so there were like hundreds and hundreds of couples wanting to get married, and well, I thought, hey, well, there's a business opportunity there. I can do it. Why not? Let's go for it. And I found it. I found it easier in a sense than portrait photography because number one, you didn't have to do the marketing, the lead collection to get new leads and get people in. You didn't have to do the sales because if you sell by images, if you charge a session fee and then charge by images, Jimmy would know if he's done that before. Mate, it is just, it can be very, very tiring and draining because you're doing photography, you are constantly reading your client,
Yep.
you're
You're the
constantly,
entertainer. You're the organizer. Pretty
and
much
then
everybody.
you're also the salesperson. And when it comes to talking about sales, you need to have the confidence to go like, yeah, so
Yep.
this is the price for this amount, the artwork costs this much, that much, and these numbers are not small.
No. No,
Uh,
they're not.
portrait clients, portrait clients buying images by the image
Yep.
would pay about $250 to $300 per image. And so when they get a collection of 10 images, you're talking about 2.53K, a full collection about $5,000. And so with all that, you add all these little things up. It is a stressful thing. So I don't think that, oh, photographers earn a lot of money. Yeah, let's do it. No, it's, mate, if you're not ready for it, don't jump in too quick.
Yeah.
Weddings, on
Well,
the other hand, weddings, you go like, oh, wow, I can skip the coaching. I can skip the sales, sort of. I can skip the whole, buttering them up a little bit, this and that, and just shoot, call, deliver. And that's true. It's easy. And it was fine. It was really good for about 2 years. And then all the couples who wanted to get married during COVID got married. And then there's a shrinking in the market. And then you got all these new photographers coming in as well, offering really rock bottom prices. And you go like, well, good for them on getting gigs, but I'm not going to even fight on price because it's not worth it. It's not
no.
sustainable as a proper business model.
Yeah.
So I am pivoting back into, actually on top of that, inflation in Australia has gone up a
Yeah.
lot as well. And so
Right.
because of inflation, cost of living has gone up. Everyone's budgets have really shrunk. So prices in 2022, for example, the average hourly rate was like 250 per hour. That's including all in. So if you're doing like a 10-hour job, it's like $2,500.
Yeah.
Right now, because of inflation, it's about 450 to
Wow.
500 an hour.
Wow.
Yeah. And so you're looking at almost doubling of the price packages. And so most recently this year, it's October now, in the last 10 months, since beginning of the year actually, people have been just, I mean, the budgets are a lot smaller. And so for a 10-hour gig, they're expecting like 2000, 2000 plus dollars. And it is a lot of work for
Yeah.
that
So,
amount of money.
so just to be clear as well, you're quoting an hourly rate for your time spent in attendance. On top of that, you have to budget for all the preparation and the editing and the sales and the after sales support afterwards. So they think they're paying for 10 hours, but you're probably putting in 30 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Not that much, not that much.
And
But
but yeah, but it's a fact.
obviously,
The
obviously you got to factor everything else in.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
the editing time, the culling time, editing time, the delivery time with
yeah.
clients. But the thing is that the clients don't think about that. All they think about
No,
is
that's
time
right.
where they see you in
Yeah,
action,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is a bit of a shame.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems more expensive to them than it actually is. They're not buying 10 hours, they're buying a lot more. But you
Yes,
can't,
that's
they
right.
won't see that. They won't see that.
Yeah.
Well, this is I think it's always a conception of how customers see things in general, not just about photography, but like even a product that they buy. They wouldn't necessarily understand or appreciate the R&D behind a certain product. The
Yeah,
developments of it. How many, the team of people, like let's say there are 100 people in the background working on this design out, and all this manufacturing, doing prototyping and everything. Why do you charge like, let's say, £3,000 a camera? Let me know. We talked a little bit about prices. I know
yeah,
I know it's still expensive, but then again, you have to look at how the market is now and how many people, like you said, about inflation. So like obviously all these workers' salaries gone up, so manufacturing costs has gone up. So like all of this add together as well. So
I
in
mean,
terms of
it does. I mean, I've just reviewed DxO Photolab 8, and there are
yeah,
going to be people saying, "Oh, I just bought it last year, and I want some more money for this version." And you've
yeah,
got to think, well, you do have to pay programmers. You do have to pay people to develop things. I'm sure these people wouldn't work for nothing, so you've got to expect to pay for stuff.
yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so I mean, like at the beginning, of our today's chat, I did say that like Nat was right. People really have to appreciate the amount of preparation work that he's done. Before the shoot and after the shoot. Same thing with the wedding. All these stuff that you've done before, the research you've done, all the editing afterward. And don't forget, as a business, not only those hours you just put in, whether it's preparation or not, but you also have other costs like insurance. Like the wear and tears on the equipment. Eventually you will have to replace them, right?
Exactly.
As a heavy shooter, like your camera probably lasts about 2.5, 3 years maximum, and then you have to get a new one because they would eventually die. So all of these are costs that people don't necessarily actually see at all. You only see a photographer turn up at the venue and with a camera, and that's all they see. And they see you photographing, clicking the shutter button, and that's all they see, you action. And but anything else, nope. Okay, don't charge me for those.
Jimmy, you were talking about camera bodies, correct?
Yeah.
And so on right here, I've got 3
Ooh.
decommissioned Mark IIIs,
Right.
because they have basically run their course, and that's in just about 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
So just out of interest, what breaks?
What breaks? Well,
What wears out?
mounts, hot shoe mounts come loose.
Oh, right, okay.
And they are a pain to. Sorry, we've just jumped in the tech part. So Olympus has the screws on the inside, which means that everything has to come out just to screw this thing
tight.
back in.
So it's
The rubber wears out and starts to peel on the
Yeah.
mount. That's still okay-ish. What else? The shutter becomes a little bit how do you say? I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like it slows down and doesn't really hit the right speed that you want anymore.
And that's usually the shutters going.
So
Yeah,
how many exposures do you reckon you've got out of each of those cameras before something happened and they stopped being any use? Are we
I'll
talking
need to check
100,
the shutter.
100,000,
Probably
200,000?
more than that, I would say.
More than 100,000. I would say close
Okay.
to at least 150, 200, closer
Yeah,
to 200, I think.
Okay, yeah.
But
So
then again, you need to
we're not.
realize
So we're not.
that as a professional, you
Yeah.
can't really compare this to a regular person who uses it, because we don't usually take care of our equipment when we're out and about. They get knocked around, they get thrown around. The fact of the matter is, they're work tools, and they're not babies, even though they are babies, you know.
Oh, why not? Why not? No, but this is the thing. This isn't premature failure. This is something you have to consider. If you're going to do this kind of stuff for a living, your gear will wear out, and you have to allow for it.
Yes.
Yes,
So
that's right.
all of these are like Nat. Let's say 3 bodies retire, and the 3 body. Let's say £2,000. Let's say £2,000 a body. That's £6,000. So £6,000.
Yeah.
That's the cost you have to factor in for 3 years. How much jobs you're going to do, and you have to kind of break it down and make sure that your budget is allowing for these replacements every 3 years.
And if you shoot with the Sony A1, that's $6,500 every camera.
Yeah.
That would hurt.
That's why I shoot with Olympus.
Well, no, but it's a very good point. I mean, the readers I speak to a lot, and the audience on the websites I work for, very preoccupied with specifications, with quality, with sensor size, resolution, and all the rest. I always try to explain to them, professional photographers don't see it that way. They get the tool which does the right job for the right money in a cost-effective and efficient way. And
100%.
whereas it's only amateurs who get really uptight about brands and sensors and megapixels and all the rest.
Yes.
It's actually quite interesting, Rod, that you've brought that up. Because even within the industry itself, you have a whole bunch of professionals who are gearheads, and gearheads not in the sense where they just appreciate gear, but it's almost like a whose whose lens is bigger, kind of thing.
What are you
Or
saying?
whose camera body is bigger?
Whose
Who's
sensor
got
is
the
bigger,
biggest
kind of thing.
extension? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So, but and they haven't come to realize, like when they ask, so what gear do you use? And because they see my photos and they go, oh, that's really nice. What lens are you using? What body are you using?
Yeah.
When I tell them, they go like, what?
Ooh. I bet you what they'll say is, do you know that would have been so much better with the Sony?
Really?
I know. But you can't get away from this. It's an obsession.
Yeah.
It's you can't get away from it. You just have to live with it.
But I guess it obviously depending on the client type. But what I could say is that I'm not trying to be causing any troubles or debates here or being sexist in a way. But a lot of my clients, even though even they may be family, but the person who book me are usually ladies or the wife or the mother in the family who book me, and for them they're more interested in the photography style and the final delivery more than the technical side of it, or which camera brand. Because I've got a few bookings before when it was the guy who booked me, and they are the one who usually ask me, what gear do you use, what brand of camera you use, or what lenses do you shoot with. And they ask a lot of these questions. Well, most of the time, if it is the mother or it's the ladies booking me, they don't really care. They just look at the style, they like the results, and they say, yeah, I just want to recreate this sort of thing. I like the look of it, I like the style. And do you get that as well, Nat?
Yes, I do, and you're spot on. It's usually the guys who I think it's an ego thing, I think it's an ego thing.
Yeah. It's like, if we're paying that much, it better come with a full frame camera. That's all I'm saying.
Or medium format.
You better come. You better come with. Better come with a full frame or medium format, and you better have a freaking f2 lens. And you go like, but in your head you go like, but in the studio I shoot f11, f12, f15. Why would I need an f2?
Yeah. That's because they've seen it on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to give you another example, there one I mean, Rod will know the brand, Snappy Snap. The high street photography outlet where they do a lot of studio work, for babies, for family, and portraits and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's a chain in the UK, Nat. So I popped into one and I saw the camera they use, and that's quite recent. They're still using a Canon 400D. So it's not even a professional grade high-end camera, but it's a 12-year-old or maybe 15-year-old digital camera.
Yeah.
It's
That's
what,
right.
8 megapixel?
I think it's 10. I had one. I recently sold it to MPB. I think I got 30 quid and thought I did well. But yeah.
But what I'm trying to make the point I'm trying to make is in a professional world is very different, because a 400D, it may sound it's not a modern thing. It's not even doing anything like compared to anything we have today now. It's no AI subject tracking. There's no whatever continuous focusing. There's no dual pixels. Nothing. It's nothing sophisticated. It's a very simple digital camera. But in a studio, like what Nat say, first of all, light is completely controlled, 100%. You control the outcome of the light, the intensity, the shadow, the highlight. Everything's been controlled carefully. And in megapixel, 10 is more than enough for, I don't know, A3 size print, which is more than...
Unless you do a big print, it can be quite hard to tell.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing the big print is going to be quite expensive and you won't sell many, so...
Yeah, from the type of client, obviously they have researched the clients, they know what the client wants, and even those big prints are usually print on canvases. Canvases are different type of material that you don't need high megapixels to print things like that. And so for them, the 400D served them well. If still working, why invest in $6,000 camera?
I guess the thing is as well, though, with those chains, you've got the backdrop, you've got the lights, you've got the camera. Nothing ever moves. The only thing that moves is the customers. Come in, stand there, look that way, bang, bang, bang. Thanks. Give you some money on the way out, and that's it, really. Nothing much changes.
On that point, Jimmy, in terms of megapixels, I guess it's a chance for those who are listening to really know that from a professional standpoint, the megapixels, like I don't really care about how many megapixels my camera has. I mean, like the Mark III has like 20 megapixels, and Mark II is 20 megapixels as well. Yeah, it's basically pretty much all 20 MP until you move to the OM1, and unless you're shooting commercial where the client wants to print something that's absolutely massive, if you don't need that kind of resolution, you don't need a sensor that's super huge or with a super high megapixel rating. So as Jimmy said, yep, 8MP 400D. If it does the job, it does the job. You don't have to square off with people and ask dumb questions like, so how many megapixels is your camera? Well, the new iPhone has lots of megapixels apparently, but it's still crap.
And I just bought one. Thanks, Nat.
Oh, I just bought one too. It's in the mail. I'm waiting for it. I got the titanium black one.
I think you nailed that word there. It's a job. If you're professional, if it's a job, if the tool does the job, end of story. You don't have to worry about too many things. You know, that is outside. Everything else is extra. And in the business world, if it's extra, that costs you money, it's a bad investment. There you go. There you go. You just need the right tool for the right job and enough for what you do, right? Maybe just a little bit more, but you don't need extra. Imagine
that needs to be an emoji. That needs to be an emoji. What you did just then. Yeah.
because imagine, like, you know, like you being a photographer, a professional, you have a business, you know, you've been doing that for years. Let's say all of a sudden tomorrow you upgrade your camera to, I know we're jumping ahead to a little bit technical now, but it's a more business related actually. But so let's say if you suddenly upgrade to a 40 megapixel camera, yeah, so your file size is more than double, and imagine the stuff that you may have to, yeah, exactly, you have to upgrade in the back end, your computer, your storage, you know, your memory cards and everything. Yep, imagine all of that. It just gone, right? Is that right, Nat?
Absolutely.
So from my perspective, the thing I've noticed is I use all sorts of different formats.
Yeah.
I do think you should, Jimmy and I have talked about this, you should start with the lenses. And my particular thing is I'm not too worried about megapixels, but I don't like it when lens performance varies. So you perhaps got soft edges, or is better at one zoom setting than another, or you have to stop down a little bit, otherwise it's not great. And I don't just use Olympus, I've used other systems too. But at least with the Olympus Pro lenses, I never felt I had to worry about any of that. They're always sharp edge to edge. The aperture doesn't matter, zoom setting doesn't matter. They're going to deliver satisfactory image quality. But I've got other cameras. I mean, I've got a Fujifilm X-T5, 40 megapixels. I got rid of two of the lenses I bought for it for the same reason, because I just couldn't rely on them across the zoom range, across the width of the frame, at different apertures. It was too variable. They just weren't quite good enough. So I would rather have a lower resolution system with good lenses than a high resolution system where I'm constantly thinking, oh, this lens isn't very good. Maybe I need to buy that one. Shall I try this one? And just being perpetually a bit dissatisfied. So you've got to find a system that suits you, I think, and that you consider adequate to your needs.
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. I think as a professional, for those who are considering jumping into professional photography, you got to look at your camera bodies as disposable. The main things that the heart and soul of your business, or your tools rather, would be the lenses. And so invest in good lenses to begin with. And then the bodies come, and as you can see, I still use the Olympus Mark II, Mark III, the EM1X as well.
Yep. Very
good. I did have some good questions. Do you want me to sit on those for a while till you've covered some more kind of creative ground, or shall I throw some in there?
I think in terms of we can come back to. Well, hopefully, we'll ask some audience some questions, see whether they have anything to ask Nat about the business side or the photography side.
Sure.
We covered quite a few things. Maybe we talk a little bit about technical stuff, and so Rod's obviously got some questions. So I'll let Rod to lead this one. So give me about 5 minutes. I just need to come out to get my parcel. I think someone's ringing the bell.
Oh right, okay,
Yeah,
all right.
I'll be back in 2 seconds.
So I see a lot of assumptions and myths about photography and things that people believe to be true. One of them, for example, is this idea that there is a perfect portrait lens, that it's always got to be 85mm equivalent, and it's got to be fast, and you always have to defocus the background. Do you hold with that, or do you use all sorts of lenses for your work?
For portraits, I have okay. To start with, to answer the question first, I believe that there is a perfect portrait lens for an individual based on style. Based on style, because some people like to stand meters away, like really, really far. And some people like to shoot half body. Some people like to shoot full body portraits. So depending on what you're looking for, in terms of your style of photography or how you shoot, you would have a perfect lens because, depends on your style. For example, if you stand really, really far away and shoot, you probably would tell the person, okay, this is what I want you to do. This is where you're going to be. I'm going to run back X number of meters. You won't be able to hear me. Just do your thing once I give you a signal, kind of thing. And then you start doing random posing if it's a model, and you start snapping away. You've got other kind of photographers who would like to stand closer to the subject and guide them through. So chin up a little bit, shoulders back. All right, point your nose toward the camera a little bit, a smidge, stuff like that. And that's closer proximity. So you want a lens that's equivalent to like 50 millimeters, as opposed to 85 or even more than that. Some people like, what do you call that? Come on, my brain is not working because it's almost 11 p.m. Environmental portraits where subject, where the background is as important as the subject. And so you want a wider lens as well. And if you're using Olympus, that may be the 17mm or 35mm equivalent, which Jimmy absolutely adores, 35mm. And it's a great focal length. Captures the environment, gets good bokeh at the background, enough subject separation, but still keeping everything sort of in your face and
recognizable,
not blowing out too much. Yeah, recognizable. And so it really depends on your style of shooting.
Yep.
And your style of shooting will really dictate your perfect portrait lens.
Right.
So I think that's really interesting because I think a lot of gear nuts try. I thought that's polite. They want to know the best thing for this kind of photography, and it's kind of created this idea that the 85mm portrait lens is the lens that will give you the perfect portrait look. But as you said, it's all about your shooting style. He said, "What have I said? What have I said?" Is it talking about nuts? Did that do it?
Yes, you did.
So,
I just saw the view count gone up, so that's all right.
but this is one of those photography myths that annoys me. That the idea there is a perfect lens or a perfect piece of equipment for this kind of photography, but within any genre like portraits, there's so many different styles. I know some photographers who like to use 70 to 200. And gets really long way back and just get that complete flattening and that background separation. It's all about the style you like, isn't it? And if you are filming somebody at work doing stuff in their environment, then good luck with an 85 because that's going to be hard work, I would think.
It would be.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it's similar to all type of. I mean, I think applies to all types of photography, not just about portrait. Like I know we always say, "Oh, that's a portrait lens, that's a landscape lens, that's this lens, that's that lens," but in reality, I mean, Rod, you shoot a lot of landscape, shoot a lot of stuff, and you don't really have. I know you like wide angle, but you wouldn't necessarily say all wide angles are for portrait, right?
No,
I mean for landscape.
I think very often a wide angle is the worst lens possible for a landscape because it shrinks everything. You get a lot of stuff in the frame, and it's all tiny. Sometimes what you need for a landscape is a longer focal length. The flatten perspective increases the size of the background. You can't just say one lens for one job, I don't think. I think a wide angle for travel or architecture or interiors, but for landscapes, there's this idea you need a wide angle because people think, oh, this is amazing, I need to get it all in. Well, you can't. It'll be
or make your house 10 times bigger.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of this. People categorize lenses and cameras for specific things when it's not really relevant. And I think part of the reason is that if you run a website, you're always doing keyword research to find out what people are looking for.
Yeah.
You find that people are looking for, best landscape camera, best landscape lens. So somebody writes an article and they have to think of something. So they say, let's get some wide angles. But it does. That's not how it works. Not how it works.
No. And the fact that if you are a photo book nuts, I can use the word now, photo book nuts. And if you like to buy a lot of photo books and look at a lot of past images from great masters in the past, you often find that let's use portrait as an example. A lot of great portrait photographers in the past, they're not necessarily using 85mm. A lot of them actually use 50, 35. And it just really depending on the type of images they want to create. If you want to do environmental portrait, they tend to use a wider lens because they want to encapsulate the background where they are and to further emphasize what they do, like the person they're photographing, the characters and things like that. Not so much about just a face. If it's just a face, a headshot or a half-length shot, then you probably use a longer focal length. And but even so, it also depending on type of shoot as well. In a studio, it's different. When you're outdoor, you probably want to actually, absorb some of the stuff behind the subject, not so much blurring everything out.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do. That's why you want to do outdoor, right? What's the reason why going outdoor, blur everything out?
so you're photographing something. I've seen you do this before, Jim, with some of your shoots. Somebody wants a photograph of them on the embankment with Big Ben in the background, a house's apartment. You've got to be able to recognize them. They've got to be in the shots as well. So exactly. I know a lot of people like to, especially they buy very expensive like these fast prime lenses, 1.2, 1.4, like f1 lenses. Oh man, I spent like $2.5 grand, $3 grand to buy these lenses. I've got to shoot everything at f1, f1.2, 1.4 all the time. But that's let's ask Nat. Do you shoot wide open all the time?
No, I don't. It's not really practical because so one thing that I found out when doing wedding photography. So I've done at least in the past couple of years I've averaged about between 90 to 100 weddings a year. So that's quite a lot of weddings.
That's quite a lot, yes.
I do a lot of portraits as well. And what I've learned with all those clients is that they want a good balance of artistic shots. And when I say artistic, I mean subject focus, lots of bokeh, okay? And shots where every face can be seen.
Yeah.
And when it comes to events, when it comes to weddings, okay, let's just put weddings under events. People want to see what's happening. They don't want to see a lot of blurry faces. They don't pay for all your beautiful bokeh. They want to see faces.
Unless they don't want to see them.
And so a lot of new photographers who come in, they would shoot pretty much wide, 2.8 f2. For those of you who have the pro lenses, 1.2, And what you get is you get a lot of clients just flipping through their photos and going like, no, this is not what I wanted. And so no, I never shoot wide open unless there's really good reason to.
I guess it's particularly tricky if you're photographing a couple. You need to get them both sharp, and if you're doing a group shot,
Yeah.
you don't know how many people in that shot are going to want to copy, and they're going to want to be sharp, aren't
Exactly.
they? So,
Yep.
Yes. Which is
um,
which is also why I've chosen to use Olympus. Sorry I cut you off, Rod, but I've
no, no,
chosen Olympus for this very, very specific reason. For those of you who have no clue why Olympus is so good, or the Micro Four Thirds is so amazing for wedding photography, for group photography, for events, it's because of the fact that because it has a small sensor, even shooting wide open, you get an amazing depth of field. A depth of field, and some people, okay, and I'm just gonna say it as it is, non-professionals who don't do this for a living always criticize the Zuiko lenses, saying that the depth of field is too deep. But the thing is that that is exactly what we professionals want. We want to be able to get as much light with as much depth of field as possible. We don't want a shallow depth of field. And so one thing that I can do that other people in the industry who do not use Olympus do is whip out my 1240, or better yet, my I think it's a 714.
Yep.
Yeah, my 714, the fisheye one,
Yep.
ultra wide, and do amazing group shots with like 8, 9, 10 rows of people, and everyone is in focus, and no one else can get those kind of shots in the industry, simply because they're not using a Micro Four Thirds system with a 2.8 lens that can do exactly that. Shooting at 2.8 and everything's still clear. I mean, it doesn't make sense,
Yep.
so
but
Oh, it's a
it,
bit lacking
it,
there.
it makes sense,
yeah,
you
a
know?
bit laggy. Australia's a long way away. That's why.
Yep. It's half the world around.
Yeah. Oh, you're back. So, so right now, there's everyone is obsessed with bokeh. Everyone. So when people start talking about, oh, it's got a bit of cat's eye bokeh near the edges. Oh, there's a bit of onion skin bokeh going on there. Oh, that's very busy. That's very busy, that bokeh. How do you feel about that? Do you think, oh yes, this is important, or do you think, oh, just shut up, or somewhere in the middle?
I am somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
I'm somewhere in the middle because, for example, I have used Sigma lenses. Sigma lenses before the art lenses came out, the bokeh was very weird. Even the Tamron lenses as well, the bokeh was like really harsh, really strangely shaped as well.
yeah.
Um, Canon is well known for its super creamy bokeh. Nikon's bokeh is all right. Sorry, Nikon users. Olympus has the feather bokeh, which is very, very nice. It almost looks like my screen right now, which is very blurry.
Yeah, I thought that's a filter you put
Um,
on, a special lag filter.
Yep.
it's called the filter from down under.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Um,
you do think it matters? You do think it matters?
Yes, I do think it matters.
Yeah.
I think knowing the quality of your lens and what it can or what it produces is really important. Because if you have bokeh that is too busy, and if you're in an if you constantly find yourself in an environment where, for example, the background's really busy, if you're shooting in a forest or a park with a lot of foliage and it's autumn. Okay, autumn. So you got oranges, you got browns, you got blacks, you got a little bit green, but it's everywhere and it's patchy. Having a lens with busy bokeh doesn't do any good. It just creates more distractions in your photo. But if you got for example, let's say I'm using a 4150 from Olympus. The bokeh is very nice and creamy. It's almost like a Gaussian blur. Um, and when you shoot, it's not too distracting. It looks absolutely beautiful. If you use Canon as well, Canon's bokeh is super creamy. You can't really fault it. The Sony lenses as well, actually. They're pretty darn creamy. I
Do
think
you think it's something that,
Nutella cream.
do you think it's something that clients will notice without knowing what they're seeing? Do you think it's something a visual thing that everyone can see, but not everyone can name?
Yes, I do think
Right.
so. Because when you look at if you were to take the same photo with different lenses, same focal length, different lenses, different kind of bokeh, you would be drawn to one that is probably cleaner and creamier rather than one with shapes, unless it's nice round, the like round bokeh shapes that all over,
Yeah.
which is yeah, which can look flattering at times, but most of the time it's more distracting.
Yeah.
Right. Okay,
Interesting.
I got a question for you, Nat, and this is something that's starting to happen to me since I would say in the last 18 months or so, but more this year, more in the last 10 months. Um, it's now I've got clients starting to come up to me and starting to ask me, uh, can you remove unwanted subject people in the background? When you let's say when you're doing outdoor shoot and I really want an empty background. I want nobody there. Like I'm the only person in the world. And because the reason I say that is that with the advancement in artificial intelligence, especially in the photography world, we're going to
Yep.
come to a lot more questions about AI in a minute because it's quite critical and quite important for photographers
Yes, it
to
is.
understand this, because we have to embrace it. It's not going to go away. It's going to come in full force, and we have to learn how to deal with them and also at the same time manage clients expectation, which is I'm trying to talk about now. So clients now seeing advert from Google, from Apple, from Samsung, when they see the smartphone advert, they say, oh, let's face swap these things. It's only a couple of buttons. It'll take 5 seconds to come back, and all of the happy faces are on one screen, so you don't have to do photoshopping anymore. You don't have to do it. Everything's done with the AI. And then
Yep.
same thing, I can erase anything in the background that I don't want with a couple of buttons or seconds, and all done for you. They always ask the question because they think it's easy. So how do you feel about that as a professional? I mean, how do you deal with questions like this if they come up to you and say to your face, okay, I want to book you, Nat, but I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. I want to wake up 10 a.m., which is going to be loads of people around, and then I want everything behind me gone completely.
Well, I'll take them to the studio.
Well done.
Use a green
Um,
screen. Do a green screen.
but if from a business point of view, these are the clients you do not want.
Yeah.
These are not the ideal clients. These are clients where I would basically say that, fantastic, I've heard what you want. I don't think I'm the right person to get this job done for you. And just be straight up because
Yep.
there you've got to really weigh out the cost 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 benefit really. Does it benefit you
Yep.
to actually get this client? How much will it cost you? Not in terms of just money, but time
Yep.
as well, time and
Yep.
also emotional toil and everything. Because these are the clients who are going to come back and keep asking you for stuff more and more and more.
Yep.
You give them an inch, they want a yard. You give them a yard, they want a mile. It just
Yeah.
never ends. And you were talking about using AI to actually fix those things on on the computer, on the app, actually on the phone, on the app. It seems really easy, but if you actually zoom in and
Yep.
check, if you're actually going to print it out, it's not worth printing out because you're going to see artifacts, you're going to see imperfections,
Yep.
you're going to see murray and all that stuff.
Yep.
So when it comes to the actual editing or retouching of an image, where you Basically, to go more technical things, how do I do it? I would do
Yep.
frequency separation,
Yep.
clean up the lower layer, the low frequency, and then touch up on the high frequency, and then before bringing everything together, and then doing
Yep.
a final touch.
Sure.
That takes a lot of time.
It is.
And
Well,
if they're willing to pay me $100 to edit one image with a maximum of removing one or two people from that, yeah, I'll take the money and do it. But if they're not willing to pay, then no, sorry.
yeah. I mean, I have a slightly different approach, and I do accept the business. However, before I even click the shutter button or even accept the deposit, is that I would educate them. I say that smartphone are
Yes.
shit, and no, the reason why you're hiring me using a proper computer, proper photo, proper camera is because you also think smartphone is not good enough. Full stop. And the thing you see the people advertising now, I say them straight up to them. Yeah, they look good on the little screen, but if you pinch it up, you look at it closer, you start to see the neck go a little bit funny when you do face swap, and the stuff that you remove. Let's say there was a big band behind. If you suddenly there's a person standing in front of you trying to remove it, the whole big band disappear as well. So like, it's not going to be the same. So if you want an empty shot, get out there early. In the right timing, golden hours, whatever, you just want to get them out. You want us to take beautiful photograph for you. You're going to have to appreciate, this also work both ways as well. So like, we come out early to take the photo of you. You're going to be prepared to
Correct.
come out, to be taken with that beautiful backdrop as well. So it works both ways. It's not going to be one-sided. We are photographer capturing the moments. We are not magician trying to change everything for you. And
Correct.
and Rod will back me up as well, because at current AI technology is
no.
not it's not quite there yet as well. The Adobe AI regeneration technology is not high resolution enough to actually manipulate a lot of stuff in details. For tiny things, it's good, but if you want to remove entire persons in the background, it may not actually work too well.
Nope. Correct.
There are lots of issues. It depends entirely upon what proportion of the scene you're trying to remove. But you have to remember as well that, let's say somebody, if you're taking a picture in bright sunlight, you're not just taking the person out, you've got to take their shadow out as well.
Yep.
Suddenly the object is twice the area. It's much more complicated. The detail that is filled in, it's right. When you zoom in, very often you can look at it and that is wrong. But speaking for myself, when I take photographs, I don't do the kind of photographs you do, but if I take a photograph and there are people around, so there's a group of people standing to one side of a landmark or a building, whatever, I can pose the shot around those people being there. And I'd find it very difficult to photograph it as if they weren't, with the idea of taking them out later. It's just not how I see things. I feel I've photographed what's there. And if, warts and all, so to speak, if there's people there, I'll make them part of the picture. I should have got up at 5 o'clock. I didn't, so I made the best of it. But I think this is the trouble that professional photographers are going to face. People see these smartphone adverts and think, God, I can do it on the phone. I'm not going to pay this guy extra to do it. He's a professional. He should be able to do this stuff just like that. But it just doesn't work particularly well. And it takes away some of the authenticity of the image as well. It becomes a fantasy rather than a record.
I like that word.
Exactly. And I think it's all part of the whole Instagram culture, because have you seen those reels where they say Instagram looks amazing, reality? Ugh.
Oh yeah.
But reality is where we live.
Yeah.
Precisely.
Instagram is a fairy tale world.
Yeah. And another reason that I brought it up about educating clients is for long-term investment. From my point of view, is because if the client understand and appreciate and book me because they actually understand what I said about AI is not good for the type of photography we do, and when it comes to referral in the future, they will tell their friends, because their friends will ask, "Oh, do they do Photoshop? Do they do this?" And the client will actually tell them, "No, Jimmy said it's not good for doing that." So it's part of the chain reactions going further down the line. So all the future clients, when they come to me, they know what I'm gonna say when they ask me, "Do you Photoshop people around? Do you remove this and that?" So it's kind of my investment in a way. I don't mind spending a little bit of effort, let's say this year and next year, and hopefully in the subsequent years, I don't have to deal with the same questions all over again.
And there's a danger, isn't there? You get talked into doing something cheap for a client because they ask you. Then they tell you all your friends, I've got this photographer who does this amazing stuff and he's cheap. So you get loads more cheap business, which isn't exactly what you set out to get, presumably.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I can actually see there quite a little bit of comments coming through now, and Alex is an amateur portrait photographer facing the same problems. I think we talk about the AI stuff, and Chuck also talked about AI generations is always a roll of dice. It is true though, whenever you click the AI regen, and it will give you like 3 or 4 versions, and every version is slightly different.
All of them with a lower resolution than the image you started with.
Yeah. And I find it quite interesting, or actually frustrating, that I know it will probably come at a certain point. But let's say if you have 3 or 4 photos in succession, but let's sometimes, because I do generate a few sequences for my clients, it will look quite nice in a frame of 3. Sometimes they have different sequence. So let's say if you want to do batch regen, and they never work because each regen version is slightly different from frame to frame. So like even though it's the same thing you want to remove, but if you want to remove that thing from one frame to another, it always generates slightly different version of that little patch there. So like if you put them side by side, they look basically completely odd. They don't match. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you can't. You have to do it image by image. I mean, on the AI side, I've got another question for you, Nat. Do you ever get clients come to you and say, I've seen this software that can make my skin smooth, that can make my chin finer, that can narrow my face and darken my hair? How far down that road do you feel comfortable going? Because I guess what we're talking about now is reshaping and changing people's appearance. Using it's easier now with AI than has been in the past.
Now, if it's just one, okay, so are you talking about the client actually using it or me using it?
You using it. So the client says to you, look, I like what you've done, but my face looks too wide, or my chin isn't square enough, or I don't like the color of my eyes.
Yep, I do manual retouching. I don't use AI for retouching.
But you do manually.
Yes, that's right. So I do frequency separation, liquefying, all these different tools in Photoshop to get it done. One of the reasons why I would never use AI to retouch batch photos, exactly as Jimmy said, is because you never get the consistency. So when you're doing batch retouching, and retouching when I do portraits is usually reserved for boudoir, where women come in and they want retouching, so body contouring, the works, everything. If I was to use AI, every single photo, that woman would look different in terms of body shape. Guaranteed. The consistency won't come out. So what I do is I get them to choose a master image, and that master image will be the reference point for which every other image which is retouched will be based off. So there's consistency throughout the whole collection of images. And that takes time. As much as I would love to have everything done at a snap of a finger, manual retouching still really is the best.
Interesting.
Okay. Well, before we jump onto a gear talk, and let's ask one more final questions on the AI, and because like I said, it is here and it's not going to go away, and more and more clients have to, well, they are being brainwashed in a way, man. I use the word brainwash because they a lot of them are not technically enough to understand what they do. They all they see is the action side of it, like swapping faces, removing things. They see the cool stuff, the cool side of it, but they don't necessarily understand the technical side of it. But how much would you draw the line? Because I think Batman just mentioned that here AI is going to be definitely going to become better in the next few years. It's now growing in an exponential speed. So no doubt that it's going to be high resolution. It's going to be more realistic in years to come. And there will be a point that they will be so good that it can be done in a snap of finger, like you said, Nat. And would you slowly integrating AI as a workflow in your photography business and slowly easing into your business as and when the technology becomes mature enough for you to use it commercially?
I think the answer would be yes. AI specifically when it comes to things I can think of would be image culling. So if I start firing off in like multi frames a second, like firing off,
Yeah.
and just shoot like that. Yeah, I would definitely use AI to start culling,
Yeah.
because AI can learn your style
Hmm.
and slowly start to pick out. If AI also understands how I color grade, crop, and sharpen, when it comes to Lightroom, or maybe another software, I would definitely start to use it because it will definitely save time. And in business, time is money. If
Yep.
you can if you can streamline your workflow from shooting all the way to delivery, that is more money in the bank for you because more time to actually focus on things that you really enjoy, more time to make sure that you are well rested, more time to engage with more clients, being more fresh, and it means that you can be a better business owner.
Yep.
I think
Well
it's
said.
possible that we think AI is not one thing but two, because what we're discussing at the moment is AI productivity tools that make our work easier. But the other side to AI is content generation, where we can use AI to create things that don't exist in the world, which
Mm.
seems to me be a slightly different argument. So AI for productivity, I can't see how anyone could really argue with this value.
Yep.
AI for reality enhancement or alternate realities. That's a very different discussion, I think.
Yep.
It
Yep.
is.
But I think
It is a very different discussion.
clients are going to ask for that. They're going to say, I want you to do a wedding shoot in Las Vegas, but we don't want to go there." That's I think that's where we could be heading. And can you make it look real?
Imagine someone booked me standing in front of Big Ben and say, "Can I have Eiffel Tower instead?" That's gonna be annoying, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I think that may become a thing. But I think perhaps Nat, you touched on this earlier. You really would perhaps try to discourage that sort of client. You might
Mm.
say,
Yes, that's right.
I can tell you which phone to get, so you can go and do it yourself. But it's not something I do.
Yeah.
And I still
Yes.
charge you for the recommendation, right?
Give me your phone, I'll do it for you, and it'll still cost you the same.
And you can remove whatever you don't want in the photo.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms just before we switch gears about AI, about green screening, I think green screening or in studio photography or placing people in different spaces and using AI to generate backgrounds like that, is something that for me is fine. I would do that, because the art the I would do I would integrate AI as long as it doesn't remove from the art of photography. So if I'm still there to post people, make sure that the lighting is all right, and actually snap the shot. Everything else, generating backgrounds and stuff like that, I think that is absolutely fine. I would happily go down that road. But if it is about taking one photo and then telling AI to generate a whole batch of photos based off that one photo, I think that's a bit too much for me to accept.
I, I think perhaps I was interviewed by somebody about AI and photography a couple of weeks ago, and the thought occurred to me that in the future, maybe the skill of a photographer isn't going to be just operating a camera, but knowing what kind of text prompts to put into an AI generation tool, and knowing whether they need to prompt for a background and then prompt for another thing that they can layer with that background. So it could be a whole new area of skill that is not really photographic, but is still in that same creative space.
So
Yes,
in a way, sorry, Nat, go on.
I'm actually in a few Facebook groups that use various tools for AI photo generation. And it really is all about the prompts, knowing what prompt to use in what order in order to get a certain outcome. It's
Yeah.
really interesting.
But I suspect as well that there's going to be a bit of a clampdown in future. That it's going to be more commercial control over AI training models and the assets they use. And I notice as well that while Adobe is big on generative AI, it is extremely careful with the things it creates not to create any recognizable products, brands, or even easily recognizable ethnicities or anything that could be considered biased or an infringement of IPR. So it's possible in future we can generate very realistic images with AI, but they will not be based on anything we recognize. They'll just be generic illustrations. They won't be definite places or definite people. But that may not be a problem. But I suspect though, but before very long, you may not be able to generate an image of the Eiffel Tower without getting into serious trouble with the Paris authorities. I can see that coming.
Well, I mean, I don't know how much you try the regenerative imaging in Photoshop. I did type in Eiffel Tower and Big Ben the other day, and all it gives me is a very comic-y looking squashed up version of the building itself.
It's because Adobe is being extremely careful because it's such a prominent corporate business that it must not be seen to be infringing anyone's intellectual property rights. Also, if you try to generate people in Photoshop, we've all seen
Aliens.
Oh, what's that? Actually, but it's like Leatherface from Chainsaw Massacre. The faces, it's like something out of a horror show. Got one eye here, one eye over there, nose over here. They are deliberately not like real people. So when you zoom in, it's like, oh my god, I'm not going to sleep now. Oh, it's that you do get some very strange things.
Yeah.
With Adobe's generative AI. But I suspect other people like OpenAI and is DALL-E still a thing? They're going to have to fall into line soon, I think.
Okay, right. So I think AI stuff is interesting, but I think it's quite heavy for a lot of listener right now. So let's dial back a little bit. Let's be relax a little bit. Let's start talking about a little bit gear. I think gear is a little easier to digest. But before we go into what you use right now, Nat, but let's go back a little bit. Talk a little bit about how you started photography. How do you start your photography journey, and what sort of camera you first picked up, or what inspired you to become a photographer? What sort of gear that kind of got you the passion?
Ooh, well, I've been shooting since I was 16 actually. Started with the Nikon with the what was it? Was it a 770 Nikon? The first Nikon DSLR. D70? Yeah, they started with D70
the first affordable one anyway,
Yeah, that's right. And then got hooked, and then got the D2H, I think, back then, which was a journalist's favorite camera back then in the day, D2H, and then went to Fujifilm,
Oh, okay.
where Fuji had a full body one with the can't remember the model, but it was the Fuji, and
Oh,
then
not the S3 Pro, my favorite.
oh yes, it was the
Yeah,
S3 Pro. Yes,
yeah,
I
we
I
took
don't,
four A batteries in a base,
yes,
and
that's right,
they
that's right.
lasted about 15
They
minutes.
lasted like yeah, that's it. It was absolutely shocking. So went
Okay.
through the days with the massive CF cards.
Oh yeah, tiny rear
Uh,
screen. Yeah.
that's it. And then my brother, my younger brother jumped onto Olympus. And back then, Olympus didn't have the micro four thirds. Olympus was just a four third system.
Yeah, yeah.
And they came out with the E1. Actually, it was the E300
Uh,
first, with a
yeah.
very interesting mirror periscope,
Yes. Yes.
periscope, what's that called?
Was
Viewfinder.
it a
What's this
portrait
called
finder
again?
or something like that?
What,
The
what's
viewfinder.
this?
The
The
It's
viewfinder.
viewfinder.
like a yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a photographer. I should know that. Okay. Uh,
We call that a viewfinder. Yes.
and then he jumped to the E1,
Yeah.
and that was when I also got an E1. And the E1 was a really interesting camera. If you looked at it, it was a camera that sort of you thought got cut off at the butcher's somewhere because it didn't look even. It was a very lopsided camera. It looked very much like one of those Sony ones, just that the lens was bigger and interchangeable back in the day. Um, and but I was still in university. I was in university back then when I was doing all that, and I went into the corporate world. So just before COVID, I quit my job, and I was a director for three companies, and not the yeah board of directors, and it was getting way too stressful. And I thought, well, even though money is good, this is not worth it for mental health. So quit that. And the best part, I couldn't find a job because no one wanted to pay someone who had so much experience and had commanded a fairly decent salary. And so I was like, oof, savings are going down. What am I going to do? I can take photos. I think I'm fairly good with people. All right, it's do or die time. And so I went out and I bought a lot of equipment, like a lot. If it didn't work, I would have tanked, and that would be the end. Uh, when I bought lenses, I bought bodies. I started off with the I started off with a whole bunch of pro lenses, so I got the full suite of lenses. The 17, um, 17, 25, 45. Also had the 40 150, 12, I think it's the 12 100,
Yep. Yep.
and the 1240 and the 7, is it 714?
7 to 14. Yep.
Yeah. 714. Yeah.
Yeah, 714. And then I got wireless flashes, backdrops, the whole shebang. So I spent a lot, and basically went head into photography. The beautiful and thankful thing is that within that was actually about 5 years, 4 or 5 years this time, October, um, sometime mid-October actually, where I did that, and then by the time December came, I'd made back everything and more that I'd spent, and that was the beginning of my professional photography journey. Yeah, it was threw myself into the deep end, and thankfully I could swim.
Well, that's always a thing, right? For a lot of people who didn't study photography or train up as a photographer, like from school days, and something like Nat and myself included as well, because I changed career to become a photographer when I'm already grown up, like had a job in have some years in the commercial world. So changing career is a big thing, right? And changing into photography as a profession, even bigger thing, because there's a lot of unknowns there, and you have to build your brand, you have to build your identity, you have to build your style, you have to somehow get that recognition from your clients, and all that also takes time. So it's not like overnight when you come throw yourself out, you advertise yourself as a commercial photographer, and the next day you're going to expect a lot of people coming and ask you to shoot them. So it's not like that. You need a lot of time, right?
That's right. You need time. You got to be patient. But one thing I could, for those of you who are listening, if there are any of you who are actually considering going professional, one thing that you will never regret is getting a coach.
Yep.
Getting a coach. Because a coach, it would be someone who is in the industry, who
Yep.
knows the industry, knows the market, the current market, okay? Not 10 years ago, not 5 years ago. In fact, 5 years ago is too long ago already. He needs to be like, knows what's been happening on the ground last week, last month, couple of months back. Coaches are not cheap. You may pay like anything between 600 to 1,000 or even more a month. But a coach will get you through the beginning of your business and see you hit your targets quicker than if you actually try yourself. It's an investment that I personally put in, and I'm glad I actually did, because without my coach, I wouldn't have been able to survive my first year, let alone 3 years. Most small businesses fold within the first 3 to 5 years.
Yep.
And actually, it used to be 5 years. Now it's 2 to 3 years, I think.
Yeah, I think much
It's
shorter now. Yeah.
compressed. And if you don't have a coach, yeah, chances of survival is very, very slim.
A couple of things strike me listening to you speak about that. I think one of them is that if you want to become a professional photographer, you need to have a kind of quality of personality. You need to have faith and confidence in your skills and what you create,
Yep.
and to have no embarrassment about asking for a suitable
Remuneration.
remuneration from your clients. That is something a lot of people would find difficult, because if you have a lot of self-doubt and you feel embarrassed about asking for money,
Yep.
that's not a good start. Maybe you
Yep.
need somebody to take on that side of the business for you, the kind of marketing and sales, if you're not that kind of personality yourself. I don't know. What do you think about that? It seems to me you and Jimmy don't really have a lot of trouble. You both feel confidence and faith in what you do, and you don't feel any embarrassment about charging customers an appropriate amount. I'm not saying you should. I think that's exactly the right way to feel. But I think a lot of people are a little less secure in their skills and their confidence. And
I think
maybe
everyone, I think everyone, including myself, feels insecure. You just have to, and it's something that you train yourself to say. In fact,
right.
in my early days, my coach would tell me to stand in front of a mirror and speak to myself and
Oh.
introduce my prices. And so until it came out so naturally that if you ask me now, Nat, how much do you charge for a session? I'll tell you straight up. So for portrait session is $395, and what you get is the session, the experience, and images start at $250 per image. And I've got image packages between one image 250 to a whole album package, which is 2,950, that you can choose from. So anything in between, don't feel like you've got to spend $3,000. You can spend $250, or you can just get a five images for 850 plus GST. And this is what you get. This is the original shot that will be taken, that is not retouched, and this is the final product. And you show it to them, and you have confidence in what you say. And it's, to put it really plain and simple, fake it till you make it.
Excellent. Well, you
Yeah.
do it very well. No,
Yeah.
I think that's very good advice, because I think you often do have to do exactly that. And I think you also said something that quite interested me. You said that you need coaching from people who are in the business now, not who were in the business 5 years ago. So I would say I'm more a professional journalist than I'm a professional photographer. And what I found was, as a journalist, the academic qualifications you can get at university are fine, but they don't really teach you anything about writing for the audience you're going to be facing. You have to learn that.
Yes.
So I've got a feeling it's the same with professional or commercial photography. You can learn what you like, but the chances are, if you do it at college or university, you're learning about what used to work, not what works
Yes.
today. So you always have to
Correct.
keep up with what's happening now, and not try and force what used to be true onto other people. I think you have to adapt.
Yes.
I mean, that is certainly
Exactly.
very valid, especially, we literally just talked about AI, and I'm pretty sure any photography university courses at the moment, we mentioned that, but they don't
Yeah.
really talk about the commercial implications and things like that, because it's not quite there yet for them to make a case study out of it. So they all,
No.
what you study in school and university is always probably 2 to 3 years behind is what's
And-
actually happening in the real world.
And I think as well that teachers are a breed apart. I've got nothing but respect for them. But you would have to say that if they were as embedded in the world they're teaching about you as you'd like them to be, they'd still be doing it. It's like if when I was a reviews editor on Digital Camera World, we'd say we need to review the Canon C300 II. We need to find somebody who knows enough about it to review it. Well, the trouble is, anyone who knows enough about it can earn 10 times more doing their job, not writing stuff for our website. So
Yes, exactly.
it's difficult. It's difficult.
But
Yeah.
one thing to add with regard to coaching, if you cannot afford a coach, what you do is you jump onto Facebook or jump onto some forums or even Patreon, where they've got what we call mastermind groups. And sometimes they're free, sometimes they're paid. And what happens is that it brings a whole group of people who are like-minded in the industry. They may be new, they may be old, but everyone there talks about certain things, and you learn a lot, because knowledge is power. If you don't believe in learning, don't even start a business.
Quite. Journalism is learning. It's hard work. Because you have to find stuff out. Basically, journalism is finding stuff out so that your readers don't have to. That's mostly what I do.
Yeah. Well, I think all portrait photographers never stop learning, because we're dealing with different people every single day,
Yeah.
and then and the way they react, the way they treat things is very, very different. The way they understand photography is another ball game altogether. So it's all of these little things you're going to be prepared for. You're going to be willing to go through that learning process, because I'm learning with each character every time I meet them. For the first half an hour, I need to learn them. And so not just about learning photography in business. You have to learn about your business skills. You have to learn how to deal with your clients. You need to learn, if you're a portrait photographer, you need to learn your subject. If you're a wildlife photographer, you need to learn about the animal you want to photograph. You learn about the habitat, the behavior, all about learning. So it's not just about buying the gear, go out and click the shutter button. It's not as simple as that. Photography, it goes a long way, and creating artwork is another level up. So it's a lot of learning going through. So that's why when people always say, how to become a great photographer, I say, that's a very big word. It's very easy to say, oh, that's a great photographer, but how did they get there? And that's another story. There's a long process. It's not overnight. There's a lot of learning before, a lot of failures in between, before he or she becomes a great photographer. So it's all about learning for life.
And if you want to be known as a great creative art photographer, you better get used to the idea it'll only happen after you're dead.
Yeah, pretty much. So I'm going to start showing some of your photo, Nat, while we're going to talk through some gear thing. I know we kind of sidetracked back a little bit, but it's going to be a little bit fun. So you mentioned to us that you use Olympus or Micro Four Third.
Yes.
That's interesting because you already talked about some benefits of it, like deeper depth of field, exactly what you need for the type of photography that you do. For instance, you said about in the studio, you often stop down the lens to f10, f11, whatever, which is that's across the board, whether it's in full frame, medium format. I heard people stop down the
Yep.
lens, to do studio work. And when you do weddings and outdoors, it's a similar thing. So it's kind of interesting because you told us you used Nikon DSLR before, and then because your brother's 4/3 system that got you into the 4/3, and then subsequently you move into the Micro 4/3. So
Mm.
do you still think that Micro 4/3 is still the system for you? Or are you thinking that maybe you've been using it for so long now, you want to kind of venture out to try out some other system to see what else out there?
No, I'm still gonna stick to Micro Four Thirds for a couple of reasons. First of all, when you're a professional holding this thing for so long, even with the camera strap, it gets really tiring. And if not for the fact that the lenses and the bodies are so light and small compared to other brands,
Yep.
my arms would be actually aching and I'll be getting injuries and stuff like that a lot. A lot. In fact, I get a lot of strain on my arm, on my shooting arm, my forearm, and sometimes I wear a brace
Oh
just to
wow.
make sure that I don't hurt myself. Yeah, because
I tend to get
when
it
when you,
right there, right there. If
yeah,
you're
right
holding a
right
camera in
here.
your, yeah, if you're holding a camera in
That's
your
it.
hand for any length of time, it starts to build up there
Mm,
on me.
exactly. And so I appreciate the fact that the Micro Four Thirds system is a lot lighter and smaller than other systems. So it works for me. The longer that I can keep my body healthy and not in pieces, the more I can shoot. So that's really important. It's not just the right gear for the shoot, it's the right gear for you. So if you're bigger build and you want to have a bigger, heavier camera, well, that's your choice. For me, I love Micro Four Thirds system because it's nice and small, compact. This is like a 45 1.2 right here that I'm holding,
Yep.
and it's so small and light. And I love the form factor. Number two, I know the camera inside out. And when you know your gear, whichever brand it is, it makes you a better photographer because you can access the menus, you can access whatever features you need instantly without trying to fiddle and look through the menus and everything. You know
Yeah,
exactly what your camera can and cannot do. You know
yeah.
what ISO numbers are usable because Olympus has a very limited number of limited ISO range that's actually usable, unless you want to spend a lot of time with DxO. Um,
And a lot of hard disk space as well, because those
that's it.
linear TNG files, they're big.
That's it. But the Olympus ORF files are really small
Yeah.
compared to other manufacturers, and so that's another reason why I'm going to stick to Olympus. The third reason would be because of the fact that the lenses suit my style of shooting. And what do you mean? Well, I know exactly. Some people would say yes, there's not enough depth of field, but it is only not enough if you don't know the working range of that lens. So, for example, if I'm going to use a 50 mil, the 25 mil 1.2. I know that if I want to get good subject separation, I have to be within 2, maximum 3 meters from the subject. Anything further than that, I'm not going to get great subject separation from the subject and the background. So it depends on the style. It also depends on knowing the limitations of your lens. If I'm shooting outdoors and I want good subject separation and it's a big group, I use the 40-150. If I want, like this shot over here was taken with the 1240, and it's a great lens. Some people say there's not enough subject separation, but for me there is enough depending on what my clients are looking for, what I am specifically looking for. it also gives you great zoom range. So 1240 is like your 2480, which is equivalent to the holy grail of Canon lenses, the 2470. Um, there's a 2470 f2, I think. Is it
At
that
two
the
eight,
one?
yeah.
There's a 28. There's a 28. I think 2870 f2. There's a
Mm.
2470 f2.8, but they're big lenses and they're
Oh, those
expensive.
are absolutely massive, as big as
Yeah,
this man. But ooh.
but heavier.
I've used those before from a friend, and they're really good lenses. But I I I will continue to use Olympus until they stop making cameras, really, and lenses, simply because I know them well. They work for the work that I do, and
I
it's a perfect match.
I think that's a very interesting thing you said about knowing what your lens is going to do.
Yeah.
Most of us understand that we want to know what our camera is going to do, but you do, even before you pick the camera up, you need to understand the look you're going to get with the focal length
Yeah.
you've got at the distance you are, and that you can't read it out of a book. You have to get out there and do it, and you gradually build that understanding, don't you? So I can understand your reluctance to shift to a different format or a different system when
Mm.
you've absorbed this kind of instinct.
Yes, that's right. And
Well,
so when I go out for a
yeah.
shoot,
No, I
when I
think
go
that,
out
and
for a
sorry,
shoot,
another point is that knowing your gear and knowing your lenses is certainly, and when you also said about becoming your instinct, which is a very important
mm,
thing for any professional photographers, because when you're in the field photographing, you simply don't have that luxury of time to
No,
mess around with the menu system, look
no.
for the feature that you want to select. You want to capture the moment, right? You're not gonna like look down and start messing around with the setting,
mm,
and you miss the moment, and you ask your client, "Oh, can you do that again?" But the moment is gone. When you're
Yeah,
trying to redo that,
that's it.
it's fabricated, it's fake, so it's not real. So like knowing your
mm,
gear
mm.
and be like instantaneous about your operation is a very key thing to any successful photographer. It's like
Yes.
we always say that, right? Gear is the extension to your eyes, to your creativity. But what does that mean by that extension is that you actually feel that it's connected to you completely. So when you click the shutter button, everything is done.
Mm, yeah, that's right.
It's like when people are choosing cameras, everyone tries to choose a camera that can do everything, whereas in fact the secret is knowing what your camera is going to do. It doesn't have to do anything, you just have to understand it so you can work with it and work around it. But it's like people who love camera gear, they won't see it in quite the same way, because I think a lot of photographers or a lot of camera fans are actually more interested in the gear
Yep.
than the photography. And sometimes the
Mm,
photography is a bit of an annoying thing you have to do now and again to
mm,
justify having the
that's right.
gear, but it's actually the gear that you like. I don't think it's good or bad. You can have interest in both things and they're both perfectly valid. But I
Yep.
think
Mm, mm.
a lot of people are actually more interested in the physical objects than they are in the output,
Yes, I think that's a very fair comment.
like
But I
me.
think, but no, but I think it's a message that we always try to get across the community. Is I know that if you say that we are not interested in gear, that will be a lie. Of course, we
Yeah,
like
yeah,
to test
yeah.
out new features, play around with different cameras and
Mm,
different lenses. It's all part of the whole package, right? But if you are
Yeah.
a photographer, you're really passionate and interested in creating good images, whether it's for your personal use or for clients, you've got to go through that stuff that we just talked about, the creativity
Yeah.
mm.
process, the effort,
Yes,
the learning process, and all the other stuff. And understanding your equipment is by far, to me anyway, is one of the most important processes you have to go through. I know
correct.
some people, like when they buy a brand this year, and then 2 years later they see another brand have a feature that they like. And so, oh, let's switch over to the other brand. Then you have to go through the same learning process again, and then 2 years on,
Mm,
and another model came out from another brand, you switch again. So like, it's not actually it's actually counterproductive in my eyes. Is you have to learn everything again. You have to learn the characters of the lenses or the camera, and that process doesn't come easy. It's not, unless you shoot a lot. which a lot of amateurs don't shoot the same sort of quantity that a professional do.
I think what I find is I'm torn between the two, because I actually got into photography because I'm utterly fixated by images. I love images, but my job is to write about gear. So I end up kind of being one and then the other. But I think I can honestly say that the images, the best photographs I've taken, the actual camera was irrelevant. It's just because I saw a thing and did it a certain way. It wouldn't have mattered very much which camera I had. And also, annoyingly, for me, some of what I feel is my best work is done on my phone, because I know what we think about phones, but I understand it completely, and I don't have to think about it. Whereas because I use so many different cameras, every picture I take is preceded by about 30 seconds of fiddle with that, and it's too much thinking.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
So another gear question for you, Nat, and you already told us that you have a selection of lenses there.
Yes.
It's a personal question. What focal length is your favorite focal length, and why?
Okay, I've got to ask you for a more specific question, because depending on what kind of shoot. So if you ask me if it's in the studio,
Fair enough. Yes.
my go-to studio lens is the 12-100 f4
Okay.
is the pro lens, because in the studio you don't need shallow depth of field, especially if it's flash photography in a studio setting. Everything needs to be pin sharp, so I stop up to about f12 and shoot in the studio. And so that lens is a great range, has a great range wide to 100, and it's ultra sharp, that lens. I would highly recommend it as a studio lens or travel lens. F4, yep. If it is shooting boudoir in the studio, where I'm not using a flash but rather constant light, then it's my 25, either the 17 or the 25mm f1.2. Because for boudoir, you want to shoot with depth of field, because the depth of field also gives the for those of you who know what boudoir is, if you don't know what boudoir is women's a style of photography. We also call it women's empowerment photography, where you shoot subjects in sensual poses, very classy but very sexy poses as well. And you want the depth of field to create a sense of mystery in these images as well. So that would be my go-to lens in the studio, but with constant lighting. So 1.2, 25mm or 17. If I am out on an event and weddings, I generally have 4 lenses in my bag. I've got the 12-40, which is a workhorse lens. I've got the 40-150, which is also a workhorse lens, and it covers the full range. So I've got 12 all the way to 140, and on top of that, I also bring a 714 and the 25. So 714 is for group shots or in very confined spaces. That lens is actually really incredible, because for a fisheye lens, it's got very minimal distortion. You still get the alien hits if you have people at the corners, but if you if you use that lens wisely, it's amazing, absolutely amazing. There's no other lens out there that I've seen with as little distortion as that lens. So those are my go-to lenses for events and studio, with flash and constant light.
Understood. Very interesting there.
That's all. That's all your lenses. That's cheating. It's supposed to be one. It's supposed to pick one.
Okay, if there was one lens to rule them all, it'll be the 12-40.
12-40, right?
12-40.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. Yeah.
Right.
So your turn, Jimmy. You've asked the question. You've
No,
got to
no,
have an
no.
answer
Yeah.
ready.
It's interviewing with Nat, not me. So tell me, what lens did you use for this particular image here?
This was the 17 1.2.
Ah, you see.
Okay.
It's you know, like I keep telling people like, how special this lens is. It just look at the rendering of the outer focus area. You know, the subject still pops, and that layers of transition from focus to defocus is so smooth in the back. You know,
It is
this is why
super smooth.
I love the 17, and same thing for the 25 as well. But the 17 is magic.
It is magical. The contrast as well is amazing.
Yeah, I really really love that lens. So we do have a sample of the one, I think one or two boudoir that you actually had. See if I can script through this. Yes, lovely shot here. Okay, these are studio, right? This is from the 12 to 100, I suppose.
Yes, that's right. Sorry, the image is so tiny.
Plus, you were
okay.
far away.
They're perfect. They're perfectly fine for Instagram.
Yes, that's right.
Right. Okay, there you go. That's one image here.
Yeah.
So this is from the 20.
Who-
This is from the 25, right?
25. Yes, that's right. 25 1.2.
So interesting in a way that let's go back to the bokeh discussions, you know, because earlier we talked about Michael Fourth had deeper depth of field, which is suitable for groups and internals and where you want everybody in focus. And there's an argument that always people say that, oh, you know, Michael Fourth doesn't have any shallow depth of field, and I think people's perception is different in reality. How we create images, when you can utilize distances, you can actually create the depth of field look that you're really craving for.
Yes.
Like for instance, in here I can see that there are layering in between, or where you're shooting through a mirror. The outer focus area is very prominent, so the bokeh is very prominent in this photograph here. So it almost make people think that this is shot from a full frame camera.
People have weird ideas about depth of field as a concept. I think partly because you had these depth of field tables and depth of field calculations that make you think sharp, suddenly not sharp. But actually, it's a range, and just because Micro Four Thirds is a smaller format, but it still offers the range of focus and defocus. But you probably just had to be a little bit closer, or use a slightly longer lens. But I think the thing that I always feel is that it's easier to get shallow depth of field with Micro Four Thirds than it is to get a very deep depth of field with a full frame camera. That is quite difficult.
Absolutely,
You've got more range to work within.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I think I had one instance where I had an assistant with me, and he was shooting with the Sony A7 full frame. There was one shot in the corridor where I had 100 guests lined up on the staircase, and I was using the 7-14 2.8 Pro, and I stopped down to f5.6, and I got absolutely everybody in focus. Every single one for the entire staircase, 100 guests in different layers. And my assistant, no matter how slow he stopped the lens down to f16, he could not get everybody in focus. And he was, when he saw my image, and he said, "How did you do it? How did you do that? You know, how could you get everybody in focus?" I said, "Well, a small format can get you that." So sometimes it's not just about big formats and things, all about shallow depth of field. Like you said, Rod, it's easy to get shallow depth of field, but it's very difficult to get deep depth of field.
I think as well, what I try to explain to people is that most people have this idea that the larger the sensor, the better the quality, which you can demonstrate to be true. But at the same time, because you're using longer focal lengths, what you get with the full frame camera is fantastic resolution on the plane that you focused on.
Yes,
but you're not. The whole of the image is not going to be sharp. You're going to have less overall sharpness in the whole depth of the image, a 3D space, than with a smaller format. You don't, you gain, but you also lose.
Yes, that's right, and that's where your genre of photography really should dictate the choice of equipment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if you're into sports photography, I can tell you straight up, just go get a Canon. Just get Canon or Sony. If you're into wildlife, I would recommend Olympus because they are built like tanks, as you would know. The weatherproofing, weather sealing and stuff is really good. If you're doing events and stuff like that, and if you know how to use your equipment well, I would recommend Olympus as well because you get the amazing deep depth of field that no other system can actually provide.
I think this is what I find. I'm particularly interested in travel photography, architecture, and interiors. With Micro Four Thirds, if you have to, you can shoot at f2, and you have reasonable sharpness for an interior shot from the middle distance to the background. You can't really do that with full frame. You'd probably have to be at f5.6, and that brings then. So you're talking about a higher ISO or a slower shutter speed, a longer exposure.
That's right.
It's the gains with the larger format come with losses too. There's pros and cons.
100%.
Absolutely. But I guess, what a remark can be written down in today's discussion is that there is no right or wrong answers anywhere. As what Nat said, choosing the right tool for the right job is more important than anything else. And there is no one size fits all in the photography world because I don't think there is a perfect camera. There is a perfect camera for the perfect job, but there's no perfect camera for everything.
I think it has to gel with you as well. You have to like it. It has to fit with the way you think. So I've reviewed a lot of cameras, and I only like some of them. They're all equally competent, but I think if you don't like a camera, you're not really going to get the best from it. No, because you've always got that feeling of detachment and disinterest and dislike. Or confusion about which style does what.
To use an illustration now, are all our viewers here adults, or is it like?
I think so.
I think so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Because in the UK, you guys have got a brand of tools which is absolutely lovely. Great brand of tools, King Dick.
Don't know that one.
Really?
I'll tell you what. I'm not even going to Google that because I know that's going to turn out.
No. So King Dick tools are some of the best tools you can find, and even King Dick, the brand, has a tiny King Dick wrench, which is really small, but it's still a really good tool. And they sell these. They sell these small King Dicks because even the small ones have
their uses.
Very good use.
All right. Okay. You're not giving us you're not giving us an Aussie jokes, right?
I think you've gone far enough with that now.
No, seriously,
our minds are racing.
Okay, right. It's been going on for a bit, but let's ask a final couple of questions before we conclude today's interview. So I know using Olympus stuff and OM stuff and Nat. So if there's a wish for you to ask OM system to make the next camera, what else would you like to improve on what you currently have?
Ooh, I would like the tracking to improve a lot more.
Oh, okay. Right.
Now we're getting to it.
Yeah.
I'd like the tracking to improve a lot more. Their tracking and their continuous AF as well to be more consistent.
So
what I find that
IAF and that kind of thing. Like focus on eye tracking, yeah.
Yes, that's correct. So when it comes close enough where it does eye detect, I would like it to be more accurate.
Right.
When it comes to subject as well, whether it's a car, a bike, a person, stuff like that, to have more accurate tracking. They've done really well with birds, however. And you kind of ask the question of why the birds are so good, but when it comes to humans, which are a lot bigger than birds, it's so crap.
Okay, that's an interesting thing. But I would not disagree with you 100% because I did find the last two generations of OM system cameras, the OM1 Mark 1 and Mark 2, I did find the huge improvement in the animal tracking and whether three-legged things or bird tracking. I think is vastly improved compared to the E1X and Mark 3. Actually, Mark 3 doesn't have any. And but yeah, human, it seems to be a little bit behind the animal side. So if they can do something to the human side to be more equivalent to what they have with the animal stuff now, it should be quite amazing.
So another thing that I would also like to is somehow it has to do with sensor size as well, but better ISO quality. Because right now anything above 6,000 is pretty much unusable unless you send it through DxO. And that's a bit of a shame.
That's going to be hard to fix, I think,
Because of the size.
unless they can figure out some kind of practically instantaneous multiple exposure blending. Sony's had it on some of its cameras, but in the past, but it's been too slow to be used for kind of regular photography. But it would be nice if they could do what phones do and just blend multiple exposures taken infinitesimally short times apart.
All they need is to throw a apple silicon in it.
Perhaps. Or scoop out the insides and put a phone in the middle.
Yeah.
I think another thing that wouldn't be bad would be having a viewfinder with a higher eye point. Because for what it's worth, the eye point of our Olympus cameras is not great. It's not great when you compare it to the old school SLRs.
Is that an EM1 Mark III you've got there?
Yes, that's right. The Mark III.
I don't think the viewfinders are very good in those. They also get quite hazy if you're looking against the light. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. So I would have them improve the viewfinders. What else? I don't really have much to complain about them actually. Other than that, they feel great. The ergonomics, one thing I found about Olympus is that the ergonomics has always been really, really good. The balance of the bodies and the lenses have been amazingly well balanced. Oh yes, I would get them to improve the hot shoe somehow so they don't keep coming loose.
Yeah.
Hot shoe mats, yes.
Great. Right, so that's from Nat's wish list, and hopefully someone from OM will have heard that and made a camera for Nat, so he can continue his portrait journey to the foreseeable future.
Yep.
Right. Okay. So I'm not sure how many of you got any questions for Nat, and now is the time where we probably hang on for the next couple of minutes to see if anyone wants to ask any question. And in the meantime, Rod, do you have any question for Nat before we conclude today?
No, I think Nat's answered everything. I had an interesting email from a retired football photographer a couple of days ago who shoots with EM1X, and he said, because he started out in film, he said, is there any way, because I'm now finding it just too overcomplicated, overspecified, it does too many things, is there any way for me to simplify it so I just get back to basics, just shutter speed, aperture, focus? And I thought, that's a very good point. I think there might be a book in that. I'm dwelling on that at the moment. But I think this is the thing a lot of people feel with modern cameras, that there's too much stuff. For what they do, there's just too much stuff. And you can say, ignore it if you like. That works up to a point, but you still feel as if you have to know what this other stuff does so you can rule it out. There's a lot to learn.
I still don't know half the camera.
No.
I don't. Even at the EM1 Mark II, Mark III, X, whatever, all the camera, even the latest OM1, I probably only know about 20%. At most.
I think that's all.
What you can do.
It's been my experience of most professional photographers. They find typically about that percentage of stuff that's useful, and they just forget about the rest. But for a lot of people, it's unnerving to think the stuff there they don't understand.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's quite interesting because I have a lot of people ask me to do tips and tricks tutorial, how to use the
Yeah,
cameras and things. I
yeah.
often say to them, I actually don't know enough of all the features in the camera to tell you all about it.
I think
There are other channels out there who do specifically that, but
Yeah.
for me, I'm more into making images. So like
I
all
think
I ever access is those that I need basically.
I think if I did this book, I wouldn't do a guide to every single thing. I'd just say this does this, this does this. These things, forget about it. Don't worry about it. Ignore them. They don't matter. That's how I do it.
Yeah, but then again, it's all really depending on what type of thing you do, right? And your
Yeah,
portrait,
am
you
I
may
going to
be,
tell them in my book
yeah,
what they ought to be doing?
like Nat and I is probably emphasizing on like in iron face detection,
Yeah,
AF,
yeah,
like human detection
yeah,
more than bird detection because we don't photograph birds,
yeah,
and we don't
yeah,
photograph dogs and stuff.
yeah,
Occasionally we may do a photo here and there, but it's not something that we do on a daily basis.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm. Yes,
Right.
exactly.
yeah,
Okay, well, Carl actually said that his last comments. One of the reasons I stay with the Panasonic G9 is that it shoots like
yeah.
a old DSLR.
It does
Mm.
rather. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's taken mirrorless cameras to bring back the old SLR design because
Yes,
digital
exactly.
SLRs, they're a bit chunky, but
yep,
did mirrorless cameras in the DSLR style
yep.
actually do remind us of old film cameras a little bit more.
Okay,
I
right,
shouldn't have sold my G9, damn it.
right. One final question for Nat for the audience.
Yeah.
Is so if someone wants to get into photography and want to be good at it, can you just give a few little pointers on what they should be doing and to improve the photography, to improve the game?
Well, first off, I would say I would encourage the person to just go out and shoot.
Yeah.
Go out and shoot and understand or find the genre of photography that you really, really, really love. Because when you really love that genre of photography, let's say you like to shoot, let's say you love to shoot people, um, human subjects, and if you have a passion for photography of human subjects, you will naturally gravitate towards learning as much as you can about the equipment that goes around that kind of photography, about the posing styles, about everything else. So go out, shoot, find what you love. And when you find what you love, you will naturally become better at it as you continue. Um, don't try to dig up books about a certain style before you actually go and try. So go try, find out what you love, and just continue. If you really want critical, um, if you really want to improve really quick, then get a coach, get a mentor, join a mastermind, join a photography group where people can give you feedback on your photography, and always have a humble learning attitude. Always listen because I may think I might think my photo is the bomb, but really maybe it really has bombed. And when when people see it, they go like, seriously, this is bad, that's bad, and sometimes it can be really painful because art can be very subjective, and you may love it and someone else may hate it. You may, for photography, you may be a stickler for the two-thirds rule, where you use the first third to have your subject there. There's so many rules, but sometimes you just got to break the rules to create something that's all yours. And for example, there is a well-known headshot photographer here in Western Australia who has a very signature style that I absolutely loathe. It's
Who?
he's got the main light key light, and then he's got a backlight as well, which lights up the back. So in every photo, you see the subject, and you see this glow at the back. Um, and for me, it's just so distracting. But for him, that's his signature style. And so some people love it. And if they love it, well, I may not like it, but if it works for him, great. He's made a business out of it. When people see these headshots, they know, oh, shot by him. Yeah, obviously, yeah, you got that like aura, the holy aura glow thing behind. But hey,
Well,
go out, shoot,
yeah.
love it, learn your style, and I'm very sure you'll improve.
And enjoy the journey, right? Enjoy the photography journey.
Yeah,
Keep shooting is the only way to get better.
I think, yeah, I think it's I think photography and writing and any creative thing, they're much the same. You go out and do everything, and 9 times out of 10 you'll say nah, but 1 time out of 10 you'll say, oh my, that worked. And your
yes,
passions will find you. You can't force
correct.
it. It kind of emerges from doing all these different things, and you
Yeah.
start to understand what's working and what isn't. And I
Yep.
think that's how you learn a lot.
Yep. And
Yeah, absolutely.
just a little bit of advice on top of what Nat just said is when you go through these mastermind groups or joining these little clubs here and there, it's very good for to get advice and criticisms, critiques on your photographs, but you got to
Yeah,
be smart about it, about the comments that you receive.
yeah,
Some are constructive, which is very good. If they are constructive criticism, you take it on board and you improve on it. But there are also
Yeah,
some literally, I will use the word hate. If some people would just probably they like your photograph, but they just hate to admit it, and they just give you really bad comments and saying, "Oh, it's
yeah.
rubbish," but it's not a constructive comment. What is rubbish?
but
What is rubbish about it? You got to be
there's a
smart
lot of
about it.
there's a lot of frustrated experts out there who it didn't really work for them, and they
Yeah.
don't really want it working for anyone else either.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mean that's my own advice because
Yeah,
especially now
yeah,
we're living in an internet world now, all connected. Things can go viral, instantly and overnight. You may suddenly got a very popular image out. There will be really lovely images, lovely comments out there. There will be some constructive comments out there, but there are also going to be a lot of these hate comments coming through, and just ignore those rubbish stuff that doesn't relate to your photography or your image, and just concentrate
yep.
on what's good about it, what's not so good about it in a more technical terms, more things that you think you can take on board to improve your photography for the next image.
Mm,
And that's what I would advise people to do, just not blindly reading every single comment and
yeah.
believing what they all said, because especially if you put them online, you don't know who's read it, you don't even know these people.
No, no.
exactly,
Yep.
exactly.
Right,
Good.
great. Well,
That's cool.
that's very good. Thanks, Nat, for joining us for this very long interview. It's a little bit overrun,
Yeah,
That's all
but
right. Hey, had some fun.
we definitely had some fun here. I really enjoying talking to you about your photography journey, your type of photography. I know we can continue to talk for another 2-3 hours. That's for sure. But I think everybody's running out of time, and so we're gonna draw a line here and say goodbye to everybody.
Yep,
So
absolutely, absolutely.
we're definitely gonna
Thanks everyone.
bring you back at some
thank
point
you.
and to give us an update for what you'll be doing, and so hopefully in the very near future we're going to do that once again.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No, thank you, Nat. So
It's
thank
been
you
a
guys for
pleasure.
joining us. Cheers. Bye for now.
Cheers. Bye.